Good morning. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the office of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North Third Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. The time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Russell,
Here.
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick,
Here.
Commissioner Guidry,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
There being no old business to come before the commission, we'll move on to the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the meeting of May 14th.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 501 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 491, place 9 in pending status, and deny 1 per assessor's request. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the 491 change orders and place 9 in pending status and deny 1 for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 33 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 31 and keep 1 remaining in pending status and deny 1 per assessor's request. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the 31 prior pending change orders, keeping 1 in pending status and denying 1 per the assessor's request.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Move on to appeals. Mr. Hoffman.
Good morning. If you're testifying in any of the appeals on today's docket, I'll have you stand up at your chair. I'm going to administer an oath to you. I'm going to indicate to you individually to affirm the oath, and I'll also have you state your name. All right. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Lisa Ross, I do.
Thank you. Russell Ross, I do. Bobby Emerson, I do. Joe Stowe, I do. Chris Guerin, I do. Tom Cook, I do. Zach Whitaker, I do. George Wallace, I do. Thank you. Y'all may have a seat. Fraser, same exercise. Turn your camera on, unmute. I'll administer an oath. I'll indicate to you to affirm the oath and have you state your name. All right. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Nicole?
I do, Nicole Singley.
And Paul?
Paul Bennett, I do.
Thank you.
Appeal.
Okay, the first appeal we'll take up this morning is the appeal of A Striker Properties LLC versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-74029.
Being no taxpayer, Mr. Almeyer.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. The Orleans Parish Assessor's Office and the taxpayer have come to a consent agreement. Email has been sent to Tanisha and Shandrika for a total fair market value of $520,000. That breaks down to $129,700 for land, $390,300 for building, for a total fair market value of $520,000.
And Chandrika, you have it from the taxpayer? Okay. Do we hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call the motion to accept the $520,000 total value, which is $129,700 in land, improvements $390,300, total of $520,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay, next we'll take up the appeal of Kenneth J. Capone versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 24221-74012.
Yes, same situation, Commissioners. We actually had a settlement agreement with the taxpayer. We just couldn't get it executed, so we're going to do a consent agreement for land at $377,500, building value at $1,310,500 for a total fair market value of $1,688,000.
Okay, and just the record to reflect, we have a copy of email from the taxpayer agreeing to those values. So do I hear a motion?
Of improvement.
Do we have a motion? Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next we'll take up the appeal of Selma Square, Louisiana LLC versus Assessor Chris Guerin in the West Baton Rouge Parish Board of Review, docket number 24221-71001.
Good morning. When you start your speech, please identify yourself for the record, and you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So my name is Zachary Whitaker. I'm the taxpayer representative for Selma Square, and this is a Walgreens that we're going to be looking at today, but Walgreens is the tenant of the property. We're going to be treating it as a fee simple appraisal, looking at it as real estate only as of the valuation date. Before we jump into the packet, I just want to make sure that my packet evidence that was submitted was delivered to the commissioners. Okay, thank you. So there's a couple issues that we're going to be talking about today, not only the property itself, but the methodology behind the valuation. So the LTC appraiser and I both are taking a fee simple approach. Fee simple approach is looking at just the real estate itself and valuing it as of what it would go for on the open market as the valuation date. The appraiser that the assessor has brought today will be doing a lease fee appraisal, which values the investment value of the tenant in place. They're looking at business value of the property, not just the real estate itself. So as you probably are all very familiar with, in the Constitution of Louisiana, Article 7, Section 18D, it talks about how when you derive the fair market value, it needs to be uniform on how you approach the properties throughout the state. Every one of these similar properties, or Walgreens, CVS, freestanding retail properties, are fee simple appraisal throughout the state. But this is the only one in the state that has been approached on a lease fee basis. There are a couple industry leading services that the appraisers have to follow, like IAAO and USPAP, which both reference for ad valorem taxation, that they need to look at it as a fee simple basis and not value the investment theory of the tenant in place. So I don't know if lease fee appraisal versus fee simple has been talked about before. So a great way to think about this is if we are to take our subject property and make a exact replica right next door, but it had a different tenant in it. So let's say one tenant is Walgreens, but the other tenant is Zach Whitaker Drugs and Pharmacy and Retail. If you were to do a lease fee appraisal on the property, they derive two different values because the lease fee appraisal would be based off of the investment credit of the tenant, but not the real estate itself. But if you were to approach it fee simple and they are exactly the same properties right next door from each other, the value would be derived the same. And that's why the LTC appraiser and I today have approached a fee simple basis because we're looking at just real estate, not the tenant in place, not the name on the door. So as we jump into it, I've got a couple more things I want to talk about before we get into my packet of evidence. You're going to be seeing a couple different approaches to value today, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the cost approach to value. LTC appraiser utilizes cost approach in almost all their appraisals. Cost approach is a great way of valuing real estate fee simple because it doesn't bring to question anything of the tenant's value in the property. It's looking at just the real estate and depreciating it appropriately in the market. So the LTC appraiser and I both have included a cost approach, but the appraiser that the assessor has brought did not utilize a cost approach in their evidence, which they will get to. They have the USPAP indicates that if you don't use a method of appraisal, you have to indicate why you're not using that. And their reasoning is they could already derive credible results, which is on page 40 of their evidence, that they can derive a credible results without the cost approach. However, we all know that the cost approach is fee simple, so they're not utilizing cost approach because it would derive a value much lower than the appraisal they're going to present. So one more thing before we dive into my packet evidence. again, the Constitution establishes that we need to uniformly appraise these properties. If this is the only property that, I guess, Walgreens or CVS occupies freestanding retail that is treated as lease fee appraisal, that is inequitable. That is not uniform, and that is what the Constitution was written for, to make sure that all these properties are approached similarly with a fee simple basis. So with that, I'd like to jump into my packet. I just want to confirm you guys do have. Okay. So on the front, you'll be able to see that it is currently occupied by a Walgreens. If we move to the second page, there is a graph of values and approaches to value. What you'll see is the 2023 value, which is the last reassessment cycle, is 1.8 million. The assessor notified the property of about 4.5 million for this year, which is about 146% increase. Now, we completely understand that the market has increased from the last reassessment cycle, and that's why the taxpayer requested value is about 2.1 million. We understand that the market has increased, but it hasn't increased to 146%. The basis for that increase from the assessor is a lease fee approach, not a fee simple approach. But you'll see on the bottom of taxpayer requested values, we do have cost, income, and sales comparison approach, each indicating from 2 million to 2.2 million, with our requested value at 2.1 million. I would like to preface, though, that the LTC appraiser does have a value of 2.5 million, and the taxpayer was fine with that value and indicated to the assessor that we'd like to sell at that value. So we are fine with, when we get through this, that the taxpayer request change can be to the LTC appraisal. As we move to the next page, you'll be able to see the Marshall and Swift cost approach. And again, this is a fee simple valuation of the property. This is looking at what the real estate would go for, or what the real estate cost depreciate appropriately. This is a fair value approach, and that's why the LTC appraiser utilizes in their appraisals. This property is only 10 years old at the time of valuation, or at the time of valuation date, and the useful life, according to Marshall Swift, is 40 years. So this property is not past the useful life. Cost approach is very fair to be utilizing to this day for this property. As we move the next couple of pages, you're going to see a bunch of, these are freestanding retail rental support surveys. There's a lot of information on there, but East Baton Rouge, the parish for East Baton Rouge has rental rates for freestanding retail ranging from $4 to $21. In our income approach, we have utilized a rental rate, if we go two more pages forward, of $13 a foot, $13.29. So this rental rate that is indicated, it was from CoStar, which we'll get to that report that CoStar has utilized for the property. So they have looked at this property and looked at the submarket and analyzed and said that as of the valuation date, this property fee simple would lease for $13.29 a foot. And they also indicated that the cap rate for this property would be 7.8%, which I'll get to and I'll be able to show you here in a couple pages. As we move forward to the next page, these are cap rate surveys, but again, our cap rate is coming from CoStar, so we'll go forward a couple more pages to this page. This is the CoStar report of the subject. So the subject, according to CoStar, would lease at a rate, fee simple, $13.29 a foot, with a cap rate, submarket cap rate of 7.8%. So that would drive our income approach at the 2.1 million. But again, the taxpayer is okay with the LTC appraisals value at 2.5 million, which Mr. Wallace will present later. So I am done with this packet. I do have another exhibit I'd like to show you guys that was submitted. It's exhibit number 2. Okay. So exhibit number 2 is a grid of all the surrounding Walgreens in all the surrounding parishes. So it's every single Walgreens that's a parish touching West Baton Rouge today. I have highlighted in yellow all the properties that are a similar year built or newer than our subject. And what you'll notice is every one of the properties that are newer than the subject are lower per foot than our subject. We're over $300 a foot when all of these comparable properties are at most $200 a foot, because all these assessors in the surrounding jurisdictions know that they're doing fee simple appraisal, not lease fee appraisal. It is ununiform if West Baton Rouge gets to do lease fee appraisal on this one Walgreens, or this one Walgreens occupied property when every other property in the state is treated on a fee simple basis. So before I close, I'd like to just briefly touch on what the appraiser for the assessor is going to talk about. He's going to show some sales of Walgreens that transacted in 2022, but these sales are in different states. These sales are in Colorado, Illinois, Virginia, and I believe South Carolina. These aren't representative of the market here in Louisiana, specifically in Baton Rouge metro area. They also are sales based off of lease fee appraisal. So the values of those sales are on lease rates that were established 20 plus years ago for each of those properties. But what the appraiser is also not going to mention is that those jurisdictions did not latch to those sales and utilize them as a market value, because they know, and they operate on fee simple too. Every state operates on a fee simple basis for valuation, looking at just the building, not the tenant's value as a credit. So they also are going to present lease rates from the Baton Rouge area or from Louisiana area, which I appreciate them using local lease rates here within Louisiana, but the lease rates that they're utilizing were lease rates established 20 plus years ago. So they were established at the construction of the Walgreens that they're going to provide. Those aren't a great representation of what market is today, or market is as of the valuation of 1/1/2023, which is what the LTC appraiser and I have derived. So as I close, I want you to think about something as they're presenting. If you were to have a property right next door that is the exact same as the subject, everything is identical, but it has Whitaker Drugs and Retail on it, and the appraiser were to do a lease fee appraisal on that property, it would derive a different value than the lease fee appraisal they're going to provide today for Walgreens. That means that they're valuing the investment factor of the tenant. So if a tenant is performing well, or if the stock price of a Walgreens per se is going well, then you can sell the property for more. You can sell at a lower cap rate. But if the stock is going down, you can sell at a higher cap rate. That is not market value of real estate. That is value of an investment factor for an investor to put money into something to hold value for the next 3 years, because they know that they're going to get their money back with a cash flow through it. That's not real estate today. So think about the fact that if we were to have that comparable property right next door, if we were to approach it on a fee simple basis, which is just real estate, the values would end up identical, because we're looking at what lease rates happened in the market as of the valuation date, what the risk of that type of property specifically, not the tenant on the door. That's all that I have at this time. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. We'll hear from the assessor's office.
Good morning, Chairman Roussel, fellow commission members. My name's Chris Garan. I'm the assessor for West Baton Rouge Parish. I have with me today Mr. Tom Cook, who is a principal and licensed appraiser with appraisal group in Baton Rouge by the name of Cook, Moore, and Davenport. Our office did engage Mr. Cook's appraisal group to value taxpayers' property for us, and that is the basis for our valuation. We've presented two exhibits, two documents. First document is just a small 4-page document that just has an excerpt of the salient facts from Mr. Cook's appraisal. Pages 3 and 4 are just a table of contents to his appraisal to allow for navigation through his appraisal report if so necessary. Our value for the taxpayer's property is $4,498,133. That value was affirmed by our local board of review in October of 2024. Land value is $540,000. Our improvement value is $3,958,133. But since our value is based off of Mr. Cook's appraisal, I'll turn the microphone over to him and let him discuss his appraisal and approaches to value. But before I do that, I would just like to restate that the taxpayers requesting a value of $2,079,502. That is a square foot price of $143 a square foot. I would also like to reference that in the past 4 years, this property has sold 4 times. 2 of the sales, the 2 most recent sales were bookend or sandwiched in between our 2020 and 2024 quadrennial revaluation cycles. Most recent sale was on March 15th of 2022. The property sold for $6,650,000. That's a price per square foot of $458.62. In December 6th of 2021, the property sold for $5,589,439. That's a price per square foot of $385.48. If you look at the mean or average of the 4 trailing sales on this property, the mean average is $401.20 a square foot. Median price per square foot on the 4 sales is $385.85. Our value as affirmed by our local board of review came in at $310.21. At this time, I'll yield the microphone to Mr. Cook and let him discuss his appraisal.
It's good? Close enough? Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. He is correct. We did estimate the value based upon the lease fee interest. The statute that I believe the intent that he's quoting, that nobody uses lease fee interest, is basically to circumvent estimating the market value of a business piece of real estate, like, say, a nursing home, where when you do a nursing home appraisal, you estimate the value you estimate the income based upon the income per bed, you deduct the expenses, then you have a line item for entrepreneurial contribution, and you remove that and come to the value of the real estate. Same thing with hotels. That's the same kind of process we do for hotels. You got all these components, includes furniture, fixtures, and equipment, business value, and that kind of thing. In this situation, in the Walgreens situation, they sell based upon the leases that are in place. That's the market value. They don't sell based upon the cost approach. They don't sell based upon what something sells for next door. These are typically national investors that purchase these buildings, and they're looking for the strength of Walgreens. They're looking for the capitalization rate that a Walgreens facility generates, and that's how we estimated the value. Now, whether or not that's not business value, that is strictly the value of the real estate, because these investors buy these things. They want a Walgreens lease because it's triple net. Walgreens pays the property taxes, insurance, they maintain it. All they're responsible for is typical management, a small management fee, small reserve for replacement account, and nothing significant in that cost. I think we projected the expenses to the owner in this would be about 65 cents a square foot. So I want to start out just saying our value conclusion was $5,650,000, inclusive, considering the lease that's in place to Walgreens. The property, as the assessor indicated, had been on the market and sold twice, and had been marketed for sale in an offering for $5,700,000, I believe, a little over $5,700,000. Our value conclusion was $5,600,000. So the last sale that was recorded was March 15th, 2022 at $6,650,000. We reconciled it based upon the income it generates. Those sales that he stipulated that are all over the country, that's true. They're all over the country. That's the way Walgreens investors purchase these things. They don't care if it's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or Timbuktu. They're looking at the income that Walgreens is generating, and they're buying it based upon that. It's almost like buying they're buying it based upon the strength of the of the tenant. So it's a 14,550 square foot building. I'm not going to bore you with the details. It's a complete city block. It's probably at Main and Main. It's one of the best sites in the city. We used 5 or 6 sales that generated cap rates and projected the gross income multipliers, applied that to the income. Now, we requested the lease. We had the lease income because they published the lease income in the offering that they put the property out for sale the last time, and it is in the addendum of my report. You can take a look at it, what they were offering the property for, and they stipulate that the income that the property generates, not the business, but the property generates, is $332,000. So we utilize that income to estimate the value of the property based upon what other Walgreens have sold for, based upon the cap rates that they generated, based upon the projected gross income multipliers that they generated, and that yielded our value of $5,650,000. This is how properties are valued. This is how Walgreens are valued throughout the nation. I guarantee you, if I asked to buy that property for $2.5 million, they wouldn't sell it to me. I'd buy it today. I'd walk out of here and I'd flip it for a couple $1 million and retire early. The property as it sits, not the business income to it, the property as it sits with its lease in place is $5,650,000. I'll entertain anybody's questions.
See your praise, and then we'll circle back with questions. Can we hear from George, I believe?
Good morning, George Wallace, Louisiana Tax Commission. I'll be brief. It looks like everything else has been covered. The land value was uncontested at $540,000. I did do a cost approach. It came in at $2,654,000. I did an income approach, came in at $2,203,000. I believe that was 600. And I used the going in cap rate, went with the lowest cap rate in the value range and in the income approach. And my final correlation was $2,500,000. And that's $540,000 for the land, $1,960,000 for the improvements. I do have some other improved properties that I didn't use. They're not within the parish. They're in East Baton Rouge. But they are recent sales of, they weren't, these were shuttered, big box or small box. There's a CVA on Government Street sold for $1,950,000. There's another one on, Perkins Road at Storing Lane sold for $2,800,000. It's being redone now for a barbecue restaurant. I have several others that fall within that range, and that range is from $152 to $289 a square foot. Predominant square footage is 220 to 289 for the sold properties. That's pretty much it. I just got Mr. Cook's report yesterday, so I really didn't have time to go through it.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, before we switch seats, I'll ask Mr. Wallace a question, if I may. On your income cap approach, it looks like you were using a lease rate. You came up with the lower end of the range at $15 a square, and that was based upon not Walgreen properties, but other properties that are strip retail in the surrounding area?
That's right, just other retail properties, and I went at the lower end of the range due to the size.
And just looking at your calculation of projected annual operating income and expense, your PGI comes in, same square footage using the 15 at $218,250. You do have a vacancy element that's minimal, so I won't go there. But in Mr. Cook's approach, he is I mean, to me, there's a significant difference if we're going to focus on the income approach upon the dollar amount of the income. So in his approach, he's using certainly a different, he comes up with a larger number. Then he's adding in the expense reimbursements, which is, I assume, will be a question for him, is the triple net that he's saying that this property gets reimbursed for. Was that not considered, or is that embedded within your 218,000?
It just wasn't considered, we didn't have any copies of leases. I don't think Mr. Cook had any either. I will say my operating expenses at 15% are probably a little bit high. Under the triple net lease structure, there's some, it would probably be a little bit lower, maybe around 5%.
Okay, but I guess, okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Wallace before we swap seats? Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, for the assessor, Mr. Cook, if you would, just going back to your income, your 332,500 annual is basically the $27,708 for 12 months. That income dollar amount, that is per the lease agreement?
They advertised it in their offering as that is the income, the gross income. So that offering that's in the addendum of my report shows that the rental rate is $332,500. We estimated the expenses and added back what a triple net lease would add back, so expense reimbursements. The total expense to the owner on a Walgreens lease like this is marginal. They don't buy them with vacancy rates. We develop the cap rates from the sales with no vacancy. People buy them because it's got a 20-year, 15, 20-year term to the Class A tenant, and then we deducted the expenses and added back what the owner would be responsible for. But we used $332,000. We did not have the lease in hand. I used that because this is the offering. This is what they published in the offering.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And the lease is through 2033, if I recall per your report. So your net operating income is 323,000. Mr. Wallace's is at 176,000. So your 2220, I'm looking at page 91 of your report, comes to $22.20. And I guess I'm comparing that to what the taxpayer's rep is saying is through CoStar is $13.29. So that seems to be the biggest difference that
Yes,
we're
sir.
dealing with here.
Yeah, we're using the actual rent. And let me say something about CoStar. We obviously have CoStar in our office. We've been paying them $2,500 a month to have their service for us for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years. We had their representative in our office, and he was bragging to us that their information is 25% correct. We find lots of discrepancies in CoStar data. Our data comes from the broker, Marcus Millichap, who brokered these properties, and so we're much more confident in the data that we have generated than the CoStar information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions for the assessor's office. So the taxpayer rep represented that this is the only property in the state that is assessed. Do you have a CVS in your market? So if I recall from the taxpayer's rep, the previous year assessment was in the 1 million range?
Prior to revaluation, our value was $1,831,933.
So the increase to 4.5, let's call it, is solely based upon what was coming from the appraiser that you engaged to present it. So I would say certainly this lease was in place prior to this assessment year.
I would concur that the lease was in place. Prior to 2021, I was employed in the West Baton Rouge Parish Assessor's Office as the Chief Deputy Assessor. I had no involvement or any direct responsibilities for any commercial valuations. All commercial valuations were done by the assessor prior to me, and at the time of his retirement, that we had discussions, and I just shared with him that I felt we had several or many properties, both residential and commercial, that were probably materially undervalued, and that we would have to address that in the next quadrennial revaluation cycle. We had two sales, the $6.6 million sale, and the other sale was $5.58 million. Both of those sales occurred after I became assessor, in between the 2020 and 2024 revaluation cycles. So I had that information available to me, and felt like we had the property undervalued and that we needed to make an adjustment to get the property more closely in line with what would be deemed a fair market value.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Any questions for the taxpayer rep? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna make a motion to accept the West Baton Rouge Parish value of $4.498133 million. That's $540,000 for the land, $3,958,133 for the improvement.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
The next appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Paul Wesley Russell versus Assessor Bobby W. Evanston in Brosia Parish Board of Review, docket number 24220-15001.
I'll have you raise your right hand. Yes, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And your name?
Paul Russell.
Have a seat. Speak directly to the mic.
Thank you. On.
More, Mr. Russell, you can start.
Good morning. Thanks for letting me come in. My tax thing is on my house, my personal home. It's not a business like the one before. And I haven't lived there that long. But when they came up with the tax increase for the upcoming, for the future, it was over 20% all at one time. I don't know if that's unusual or not, but I sure felt it was unusual. The average home price in my neighborhood, I know all homes are different, is $321,000. They appraised me at like $383, and I paid $380 for the house. I do acknowledge that. When I was purchasing the house, they told me I was going to pay about 5 or 10% down, and I'll be good with that. And before we closed, my insurance mortgage company that I was going to use called and said, Paul, we're going to have to raise your down payment to 20%. I said, oh man. I said, oh, okay, I could do it, no problem. And then the day before we were going to close, that same mortgage company said, Paul, got some bad news. We're going to have to raise your down payment to 30%. And I didn't understand why. He just wouldn't tell me. He was just mumbling, nothing he could do about it. I found out after the fact, I'm jumping around, I don't have lawyer notes, that I overpaid for the house a little bit, of about 10%. And this guy that I was communicating with on the loans, supervisor or supervisors were telling him, hey, we're gonna need more money down before we loan this man money for that house. I found that after the fact. No problem. I bought the house. But I did pay about 10% too much for it. It's not, it was, I mean, I like that. My wife likes the house. I liked it because of where it was at. No drive-throughs. It'll be quiet. I like quiet. Even though I talk loud, it always shuts me up. I talk loud, but I like quiet neighborhoods. And I got one back in the corner. No cars coming through. Perfect. Good. The house wasn't in the best condition. The fence was falling apart. I don't know what you call it. Always pergola, whatever that goes over the back bricks, the foundation, honey, those carpenter beat. It's just the house needs work, needs carpet, needs everything. And one day it'll all get fixed, but not today. Behind my house is nothing but a big empty grass lot between my house, very large lot, and then the parkway. And I thought that was pretty cool. No noise in the back. I like that. And it kind of looked country feeling, even though it wasn't in the country, right by the parkway. Found out after the fact, there's about 7 houses that back up to that lot. And I've heard that people selling homes there sometimes have felt a little trouble with the buyers because that lot could be sold at any moment and you have a Walmart behind you. It's empty now, but that could change just like that. I didn't think of anything like that. I just like to look at all the grass growing and no houses. Maybe that was one of the reasons this house that I bought was on the market for over a year. There's also 2 plantation trace neighborhoods. There's mine, and on the other side of the track, so to speak, is another one. And they both got the same name. One of them's brand new, and then there's mine that's 35 years old. I don't know why they picked the same name for them, but they do have the same name. So mine's 35-year-old neighborhood. I don't know if some of the examples, I don't recognize any of the streets, are in the newer part of the neighborhood. The house has, besides the condition, it does have some downfalls that maybe why it didn't sell. It's just me and my wife. We don't, it has a small upstairs. We don't use it. If you'll see a picture of my house, it doesn't even look 2-story. It's a real small, it's 2,000 square feet on the bottom. And they say it has about 12 or 1,300 square feet on the top. But all the rooms, it goes like this, except for one room. You can't even put nothing up against the wall. It's there though. I understand it is heated and cooled. It is there, but there is no attic. There is 0 attic. They got a little room where they got the hot water heater, and they got the wall that goes like this. And we got a couple of boxes and a couple of picture frames in there. That's all you can fit. So we got everything in our garage until one day when I'm gonna have to build a shed in the back. It doesn't have one of those. The upstairs is bad. The reason for the 30% down, either it wasn't my credit score. I'm old and I ain't rich, but I'm old and pay my bills. My credit score starts with an 8, but that wasn't an issue at all. Also on the, when they came back for the 30% down, the day before closing, I put my head together what I could do. I asked for 7 days extension because I called my company. I got $50,000 out of my 401k because this was very unexpected, and it all boils down to where I overpaid 10%. I moved from a house that had 2,776 square feet, and I sold it for $239,000. Moved over the river to this house. They say it has about 3,300 square feet for $380. Looks like I overpaid 10%. If I think anything else, I'll tell you before I lay my cards on the table. I don't know how different land value and house and put it all together. I just know the top number, what you could get for it. And from what I overpaid for it, but we're happy with it. And what I was paying tax on, $325,000. Overnight, it went to $383,000. Well, I know I could get more than $325,000 for it, but I couldn't get $383,000 for it unless I was gonna let it sit on the market like they did forever and just hope one day. It wasn't gonna happen. I think I put on there when I initially wrote down, I thought it would be worth $340,000. But I know taxes is important. We gotta pay tax. Somebody gotta collect the tax. We gotta get things moving in our state and our parish. I would put all my cards on the table and would love for everybody to win, meet in the middle at $350,000. And everybody in the parish gets their increase of about 14%, and I don't get a tax increase of 20+% all at one time to go along with the homeowner's insurance that just is following suit. This made my house note go up $365 a month overnight. And I would be willing to pay, I hope you would understand that $350 would be fair on both ends. You still get a good increase for the parish. And I think it'd be fair. That's all.
Thank you. We'll hear from Assessor Edmondson.
Chairman Roussel Commission, good to be here. I'm Bobby Edmiston, Bossier Parish Assessor. I'm not going to talk a whole lot. I'm going to let my field appraiser, Joe Don Stickle, who's in charge of that area, walk you through the package that we submitted and describe things on there. If y'all have any questions, we'll be glad to answer.
Good morning. Joe Stickle, Bossier Parish Assessor's Office. Kind of walk you through our package here. So on August 27th, 2024, Mr. Russell contacted our office, stated the property value was too high. Okay, I got you.
If you don't speak, they're not able to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll be moving. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That better? Okay. So starting on page 5 is our fair market value report. It's a breakdown out of our CAMA system. It gives you a breakdown of the residential subdivision lot and the single family residence. Kind of gives you a breakdown of the price in there. On to the next page is the GCT aerial imagery of the property. It's done by a flyover, and you can see that it's property right there from the top. It's labeled with his name and everything. Next page is the apex sketch. That's whenever our field appraisers we go out in the field, we take measurements of the house, come back, put it in our system, attach it to our CAMA system. Next page there is a street view of the house when the appraiser visited the property back in 2022 after the sale of the property. On to Exhibit A. Exhibit A is a sales report using Smart CAMA for the subject neighborhood Plantation Trace. It also shows the sales for Madison Place and Plantation Trace Estates. So the median sales value in the subject neighborhood, Plantation Trace, the median sales is $138.91. The average sales came out to be $135.99. The subject property is appraised at $113.83. The next subdivision there is Madison Place. The median sales in there were $153.80. The average sales in there were $150.38. Plantation Trace Estates on the next page. The median sales in there was $139.55, and the average sales was $148.30. On to the next page is a similar report using Value Base, which provides a third-party sales report for comparable sales. This report puts a side-by-side comparison of the sales for the subject property, neighborhood Plantation Trace. The comparison shows the sales price per square foot, appraised price per square foot for everything in the sales region there. So sale 1 shows it at $138.91 a square foot. Sale 2 was 110 a square foot and cell 3 was 139.97 a square foot. The next page shows, it's a map from Value Based that shows all the cells in geographical reference to the subject property. The subject property is listed in red and all the cells are in yellow. Exhibit C is the sales deed from the sale in November of 2021. Shows it sold for $379,900, which is $112.83 a square foot. That concludes all my evidence.
Paul?
Paul Bennett, Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 1216 Chopin Drive with a undisputed land value of $37,000, an improvement value of $348,500 for a total value of $385,500. And one thing I did want to point out that seemed to be some misinformation out there. I'm looking at the prior MLS listing from when the taxpayer purchased the property, and it was on the market for 47 days. It was the actual DOM on it. Just kind of wanted to clarify that misinformation out there.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Questions
Sure.
from the commission?
Mr. Chair, one quick question for the assessor's office. Was today the first time you're hearing the taxpayer's request for the 350,000?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
None, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna make a motion to accept the Bossier Parish, value of $383,270. That's $37,000 for the land, $346,270 for the improvement.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Was the assessor, unfortunately,
Say again?
to the assessor's value. Is it? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Any objection?